The gallery was silent, the kind of silence that follows revelation. On the wall hung a portrait so hauntingly beautiful that visitors stood frozen, tears streaming down their faces. The light seemed to dance across the canvas with impossible precision. Every shadow told a story. Every brushstroke whispered emotion. And when they announced the winner, when they read the artist's name, the room erupted, not in applause, in disbelief, because the artist wasn't human. It was an algorithm, a machine, a collection of mathematical equations that somehow learned to speak the language of the soul. This isn't science fiction. This happened multiple times. In Colorado, an AI-generated artwork won first place at the state fair, beating hundreds of human artists who had spent decades perfecting their craft. In Germany, an AI painting sold for over $400,000. In Tokyo, an AI film won a screenwriting competition, and the judges admitted they couldn't tell it was machine-generated until after they'd chosen it. Welcome to 2025, where the most human of all professions, the one we thought was uniquely ours, the realm of creativity, imagination, and soul, is being systematically dismantled by artificial intelligence. Art, the sacred domain of human expression. The profession we were told would be the last to fall, because machines can't feel, right? They can't suffer, they can't love, they can't dream. They can't stare at a sunset and feel something break open inside them. They can't channel heartbreak into beauty. They can't transform pain into poetry. Except now they can. Or at least, they can simulate it so perfectly that we can't tell the difference. And if we can't tell the difference, does the difference even matter? There are 3.2 million professional artists in the United States alone. Graphic designers, illustrators, concept artists, portrait painters, digital creators, traditional craftspeople. 3.2 million people who built their identity around the ability to create something from nothing, to see the world differently, to make the invisible visible. And in the last 18 months, 47% of them have reported significant income loss due to AI art tools. 47%, nearly half, in less than 2 years. Some historical context. When photography was invented in 1839, painters panicked. They thought it was the end of art. Why would anyone commission a portrait when a photograph could capture reality instantly? But painting didn't die. It evolved. It became more abstract, more expressive, more interpretive. It focused on what photography couldn't capture, the invisible, the emotional, the surreal. But here's the difference. Photography couldn't paint like painters. It did something new. AI doesn't do something new. It does exactly what artists do, just faster, cheaper, and increasingly better. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're a freelance illustrator. You spent 4 years in art school, racked up $60,000 in student debt, and spent another 5 years building your portfolio and client base. You charge $300 for a custom illustration. It takes you 6 hours. That's $50 an hour, before taxes, before software subscriptions, before health insurance. A client comes to you with a request, a fantasy landscape. Dragons, castles, dramatic lighting. You sketch, you revise, you refine. 6 hours, $300. Meanwhile, someone else takes that same prompt, types it into Midjourney or DALL-E or Stable Diffusion, and 30 seconds later has 50 variations to choose from. 50 perfect professional-grade illustrations in 30 seconds for $10 a month. Who gets the job? You know the answer. We all know the answer. This is what's happening right now, in real time, across every corner of the creative economy. Book cover designers are being replaced by AI generators. Concept artists in gaming studios are watching their departments shrink. Advertising agencies that used to employ teams of illustrators now have one art director and a subscription to an AI tool. Stock photography sites are flooded with AI-generated images that are indistinguishable from human work, sold at a fraction of the price. And it's not just commercial art. Fine artists, the ones who pour their souls onto canvas, who spend months on a single piece, they're watching AI win competitions they entered, watching their life's work get compared to something a machine made in seconds and being told the machine did it better. The CEO of Stability AI, the company behind Stable Diffusion, said something chilling in an interview last year. He said there will be no human artists within 10 years, not that there will be fewer, that there will be none. Because, in his words, why would anyone pay for something a machine can do instantly and for free? He later walked that statement back, called it hyperbole, said he meant commercial art, not fine art. But the damage was done. The message was clear. Your profession is obsolete. Your skill is redundant. Your years of practice, your unique vision, your human touch, none of it matters anymore, because we built something that can do what you do, and it doesn't need sleep, doesn't need inspiration, doesn't need to eat or dream or suffer. Here's what keeps artists up at night. It's not just that AI can create art, it's how it learned to do it. These models were trained on billions of images scraped from the internet. Images that artists uploaded to showcase their work, to build their portfolios, to share their vision with the world. And companies took those images without permission, without compensation, and fed them into algorithms that learned to mimic their style, your unique artistic voice, the thing you spent years developing, has been digitized, commodified, and is now being used to put you out of work. Imagine spending a decade perfecting a painting technique, a signature style that makes your work recognizable, valuable, yours, and then watching someone type your name into an AI prompt in the style of, and seeing it generate perfect imitations in seconds. It's not homage, it's not inspiration, it's theft. Digital vampirism, your creative DNA, extracted and replicated without your consent. Artists are fighting back. There are lawsuits, class actions against Stability AI, Midjourney, DeviantArt. Thousands of artists claiming copyright infringement, claiming that training AI on their work without permission is illegal. But the legal system moves slowly, and technology moves fast. By the time these cases are resolved, the damage will be done. The market will have shifted, the clients will have moved on. And even if artists win, even if the courts rule in their favor, what then? The technology exists. The genie is out of the bottle. You can't uninvent something. You can regulate it, you can limit it, but you can't erase it. And here's the really terrifying part. It's getting better. Exponentially better. The first AI art tools 2 years ago were crude, obviously artificial. Strange hands, weird proportions, that uncanny valley feeling. But now they're producing work that's not just good, it's exceptional, award-winning, museum quality. And they're learning faster than any human could. A human artist might study for 20 years to master light and shadow, composition, and color theory. An AI can analyze 10 million paintings in a week and understand the patterns that make art emotionally resonant. It doesn't feel the emotion, but it knows how to replicate the visual language of emotions so perfectly that we feel it when we look at it. If your job follows a pattern, AI can replicate it faster, cheaper, and endlessly. And art, for all its talk of creativity and soul and human essence, follows patterns. Color palettes that evoke certain moods, compositional rules that draw the eye, lighting techniques that create drama, brush stroke patterns that suggest texture. These aren't mysteries, they're techniques. And techniques can be learned, can be analyzed, can be codified into algorithms. The romantic notion of the artist as a divine vessel channeling something ineffable from the cosmos is beautiful, but it's also wrong, or at least it's incomplete. Because if art was truly ineffable, truly beyond pattern and structure, AI couldn't do it. But it can, which means art is more teachable, more systematic, more replicable than we wanted to believe. So what happens to those who refuse to adapt? What happens to the portrait painter who insists on traditional oils, who refuses to even learn digital tools, let alone AI? What happens to the illustrator who says, "I'll never use these machines. This isn't real art"? They vanish. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, as their client base shrinks, as the gigs dry up. As the younger generation of creators who embrace AI tools take the jobs, take the commissions, take the future. History doesn't care about your principles. Evolution doesn't reward stubbornness. The artists who survived photography weren't the ones who rejected cameras. They were the ones who found what painting could do that photography couldn't. And the artists who will survive AI won't be the ones who reject it. They'll be the ones who figure out what humans can do that machines can't, if anything. But here's where the story shifts. Here's where despair meets possibility. Because this has happened before. Not exactly like this, but close enough to learn from. When the printing press was invented, scribes thought it was the end of their profession. And they were right. Manual book copying died, but literacy exploded. And with literacy came new forms of writing, new genres, new possibilities that scribes couldn't have imagined. When factories mechanized textile production, weavers thought it was the end of their craft. And it was for many. But it also created new industries, new jobs, new forms of creation. The economists call it creative destruction. The old dies, so the new can be born. It's brutal, it's painful, it destroys lives and livelihoods. But it's also how humanity moves forward. The Industrial Revolution killed artisan crafts, but created the middle class. The internet killed print journalism, but gave birth to a democratized information age where anyone with a story could reach millions. Every technological leap forward is a massacre and a renaissance at the same time. The question isn't whether artists will be replaced. Some will be. Many will. The question is what comes next. What new forms of creativity emerge? What new ways of being human become possible when the old constraints fall away? Here's a thought. For all of human history, art has been limited by human capability. If you couldn't draw, you couldn't visualize your ideas. If you couldn't afford paint, you couldn't create. If you couldn't spend years learning technique, your vision stayed locked in your head. AI removes those barriers. Suddenly, someone with no artistic training can describe the image in their mind and see it rendered beautifully. Someone with a disability that prevents them from holding a brush can create visual art. Someone in a remote village with no art school can experiment with styles and techniques that took others decades to learn. Is that democratization? Or devaluation? Is it liberation or theft? Probably both. Probably neither. Probably something we don't have words for yet because we're living through it in real time. There's a concept in evolutionary biology called punctuated equilibrium. The idea that species don't evolve gradually, but in sudden bursts, triggered by environmental pressure, long periods of stability, then rapid, violent change. That's where we are now. The artistic profession is in punctuated equilibrium. Everything that was stable for centuries is changing in months. And the artists who survive won't be the most talented, necessarily. They'll be the most adaptable, the ones who can see the shift not as an ending, but as a transformation. Let me tell you about creative destruction from a human angle. In 1913, there were 13,000 carriage makers in America, people who built horse-drawn carriages by hand, a craft passed down through generations. Beautiful work, skilled work, essential work, until it wasn't. The automobile killed that profession in a decade. Gone. But the children of carriage makers didn't starve. Some became auto mechanics, some became car designers. Some left transportation entirely and found new trades. The craft died, but the craftspeople adapted. The question is always the same. What can you do that the machine can't? And the answer keeps changing. At first, it was physical labor. Machines can't do what humans do with their hands. Then it was calculation. Machines can't do math like humans. Then it was repetitive tasks. Then it was complex analysis. Then it was creativity. And now, apparently, even creativity is on the table. But here's what machines still can't do. They can't want, they can't desire, they can't yearn. An AI can generate a painting, but it doesn't care if anyone sees it. It doesn't need validation, doesn't crave recognition, doesn't lie awake at night wondering if its work matters. It has no existential dread, no fear of being forgotten, no desperate need to leave a mark on the world before it dies. Those are human drives, deeply, uniquely human. And maybe, just maybe, that's what survives the AI revolution. Not the technical skill, not the ability to render light and shadow, but the why, the reason we create in the first place. Every machine replaces a task, but never a dream. An AI can paint a sunset, but it's never watched a sunset and felt time stop. It's never lost someone and tried to capture their face from memory before it fades. It's never been so angry or so in love or so heartbroken that the only way to survive was to make something beautiful from the pain. That's the human edge. Not what we make, but why we make it. And maybe the future of art isn't about competing with AI. It's about going deeper into the things AI can't touch. The messy, irrational, beautiful, tragic parts of being alive. There's a Japanese concept called wabi-sabi, the appreciation of imperfection, the beauty in things that are flawed, incomplete, impermanent. A cracked teacup, a weathered stone, a painting with visible brush strokes, where you can see the artist's hand trembling, where you can feel their humanity in every mistake. AI art is perfect, too perfect. It's smooth, polished, technically flawless, but it lacks wabi-sabi. It lacks the beautiful imperfection that makes something human. And maybe that's the path forward, not trying to out-perfect the machines, but leaning into the imperfections that make us real. So here's the playbook. First, audit your job. Be honest, brutally honest about what you do. Break down your creative process into steps: ideation, composition, execution, refinement. Which of those steps can AI already do? Which ones can it do better than you? Because denial is a luxury you can't afford. If you're a digital illustrator doing generic fantasy art, AI is coming for your job. It's not coming, it's here. If you're doing commissioned pet portraits in a standard style, AI can do that now. If you're designing logos, creating stock images, doing concept sketches, these are all tasks that follow patterns, and patterns are what AI excels at. Second, learn to use AI as a tool, not as a threat. This is the hardest mental shift for artists because it feels like collaboration with the enemy. But the artists who thrive in the next decade won't be the ones who reject AI. They'll be the ones who master it, who use AI for ideation, for rapid prototyping, for exploring variations, who let the machine handle the tedious parts so they can focus on the human parts, the vision, the emotion, the meaning. Think of AI as the ultimate assistant. It can generate 50 background options in seconds. You choose the one that resonates, then you refine it. You add the human touch, the intentionality, the soul. The AI gives you speed, you give it purpose. Third, build, create, own. Don't just make art for clients, make art for yourself. Build a body of work that's so distinctly you that AI can't replicate it, because it's not about technique, it's about perspective. Your unique way of seeing the world, your experiences, your pain, your joy, your weirdness. AI can mimic style, but it can't mimic life. It can copy brushstrokes, but it can't copy the 30 years of living that informed those brushstrokes. Own your story. Make your story the art, not just what you create, but why you create it. Fourth, diversify. If you're only an illustrator, learn animation, learn sculpture, learn installation art, learn to code and create generative art, learn to write and pair words with images. The more dimensions you work in, the harder it is for AI to replace all of them. Become a creative polymath, because the future doesn't belong to specialists who do one thing perfectly. It belongs to adaptable generalists who can combine multiple skills in ways machines haven't been programmed for yet. Fifth, go analog. There's a renaissance happening in traditional crafts. Pottery, woodworking, textile arts, things that require physical presence, tactile skill, the messiness of material reality. AI can generate an image of a ceramic bowl, but it can't throw clay on a wheel. It can't feel the mud between its fingers. People are craving authentic, physical, imperfect things in a world drowning in digital perfection. There's a market there, a growing market, for things made by human hands in real space and time. And finally, teach. If AI can do what you do, teach others to do what AI can't. Teach the philosophy of art. Teach art history, art criticism, the cultural context that makes art meaningful. Teach people how to see, not just how to render, because creating images is becoming commodified, but understanding images, interpreting them, placing them in dialogue with human experience, that still requires human consciousness. Be the bridge between the human and the machine. Help people understand what they're looking at and why it matters. Adaptation isn't just intelligence, it's survival written in human code. The artists who make it through this transition won't be the ones with the most talent or the most training. They'll be the ones with the most resilience. The ones who can look at a machine that does their job better than them and say, okay, what now? What can I do with this tool? How can I evolve? Because the alternative is extinction, and extinction is boring. Extinction is giving up, and humans don't give up. We're too stubborn, too curious, too desperate to matter. We'll figure it out. We always do. So here we are, standing at the edge of something. Maybe it's an abyss, maybe it's a doorway. An AI just won another art competition. Another human artist watched their life's work get devalued by an algorithm. Another creative professional wondered if they should quit, if they should find a new career, if everything they built is crumbling. And all of that is true. All of that is happening. But here's what's also true. Humans are still making art, still creating, still experimenting, still pouring themselves into their work even though the market is collapsing, even though the machines are better, even though it might be pointless. Because maybe it was always pointless. Maybe art was never about making money or winning competitions or proving you're the best. Maybe it was always about the act itself, the need to externalize the internal, to make the invisible visible, to say, I was here, I felt things, I mattered. An AI can win a competition, but it can't care that it won. It can generate a masterpiece, but it can't be moved by its own creation. It can replicate every artistic technique ever invented, but it can't explain why humans needed to invent them in the first place. We create because we're mortal and terrified and in love with the world despite everything. We create because it's how we process grief, celebrate joy, make sense of chaos. We create because making something from nothing is the closest we ever get to being gods. And no algorithm, no matter how sophisticated, can take that away from us, unless we let it. The choice is ours. We can watch the machines replace us and mourn what we've lost. Or we can use the machines as a catalyst to evolve into something we haven't imagined yet. To redefine what it means to be creative. To find the parts of art making that are so intrinsically human that no code can touch them. The parts that hurt. The parts that heal. The parts that connect us to each other and remind us we're alive. Extinction or evolution, resistance or adaptation, fear or curiosity. These are the only choices. And if you're still here, if you're still listening, if you're still creating despite everything, then you've already chosen. You've chosen evolution. You've chosen to keep going, to keep making, to keep believing that human creativity matters even in a world that might not need it anymore. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything. Audit, adapt, build, own. These aren't just strategies for survival. They're principles for remaining human in an increasingly inhuman world. They're how we hold on to ourselves when everything is trying to make us obsolete. They're how we turn this moment of crisis into a moment of transformation. Because that's what humans do. We take the impossible and we make it possible. We take the end of the world and we build something new from the rubble. Humanity isn't ending. It's just beginning again. The age of the artist as the solitary genius creating perfect works in isolation might be over. But maybe what comes next is better. Maybe what comes next is a world where everyone can create, where the barriers between imagination and reality dissolve, where the tools become so powerful that the only limitation left is our own courage to envision something new. Maybe AI doesn't kill art. Maybe it kills the commercial art industry and frees art to be what it was always supposed to be. Not a product, not a career, but a fundamental human need, a way of being alive. The gallery is silent. On the wall hangs a portrait created by human hands, imperfect and raw and devastating in its honesty. Next to it hangs an AI-generated masterpiece, technically flawless, algorithmically perfect. Visitors stand between them, looking back and forth, trying to decide which one moves them more. And maybe that's the future. Not one or the other. Not human or machine. But both. Together. In conversation. The machine creating what the human imagines. The human imagining what the machine makes possible. A collaboration instead of a competition. A partnership instead of a war. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the pessimists are right, and human artists are truly done, replaced completely, forgotten by history, a brief evolutionary dead end in the march toward artificial superiority. Maybe in 50 years, museums will display AI art exclusively, and humans will look at it and never know the difference, never care about the difference, never wonder what it would have been like if people had made it. Maybe we're watching the death of something precious, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. But I don't believe that. I can't believe that, because I've seen what humans do when they're backed into corners. I've seen the art that emerges from crisis, from pain, from the edge of extinction. And it's not polite, it's not perfect, it's not algorithmically optimized for engagement. It's messy and desperate and achingly beautiful. It's proof of life. And as long as we're alive, as long as we have something to say and the stubborn, foolish courage to say it, art will survive. Not because the market demands it, not because competitions reward it, but because we can't help it. Because creating is what humans do. It's in our code. the oldest code there is, older than language, older than civilization. The need to leave a mark, to say, I was here, I felt things, I mattered, I made something. And no machine, no matter how perfect, can take that away from us, unless we hand it over, unless we give up, unless we decide that if we can't compete, we won't create at all. But that's not who we are. That's never been who we are. We're the species that painted on cave walls knowing the paintings would outlive us. We're the species that carved statues and wrote poems and composed symphonies even when no one was listening, even when the world was ending, even when it seemed pointless. Because it was never about the outcome. It was always about the act, the reaching, the trying, the refusal to let the universe be silent and indifferent without at least trying to fill it with meaning. So make your choice. Adapt or vanish. Evolve or be forgotten. Use the machines or be replaced by them. But whatever you choose, choose it consciously. Choose it deliberately. Because we're living through a moment that will define the next century of human creativity. And your choice right now, in this moment, matters. Not to the machines. They don't care. But to the other humans who are watching, who are afraid, who are wondering if there's a path forward. Be the proof that there is. Be the artist who doesn't give up. Be the human who keeps creating even when it's hard, even when it's not profitable, even when the machines are better. Because that's the only thing that's ever mattered anyway. Not being the best, but being here, being present, being defiantly, messily, imperfectly human in a world that's trying very hard to optimize the humanity right out of us. Audit, adapt, build, own, and above all, keep creating. Not because you'll win, not because you'll make money, not because anyone will care, but because you're alive and you have something to say, and the act of saying it is what makes you human. That's the competitive advantage machines will never have. They can make perfect art, bam, but they can't need to make it. You can. You do. And that need, that desperate human need to externalize the internal, to transform experience into expression, that's what survives everything. Every revolution, every catastrophe, every technological leap that tries to make us obsolete. We keep creating. We always have. We always will. The AI just won another competition, and somewhere a human artist is picking up a brush anyway. Not to compete, not to win, but because they have to. Because it's Tuesday morning and they're alive, and they have hands and paint and a story that needs telling. And that, more than any award, more than any algorithm, more than any perfect machine-generated masterpiece, is what art has always been about. The audacious, irrational, beautiful act of being human in a universe that doesn't care, of making meaning where there is none, of saying, this matters, I matter, we matter, even when everything suggests otherwise. Subscribe if you believe in human evolution, not extinction. Subscribe if you think the story isn't over, it's just changing chapters. Subscribe if you're scared, but you're going to keep creating anyway, because what else is there to do? What else has there ever been to do? We're artists. We're humans. We make things. And no machine, no algorithm, no perfect AI will ever take away the thing that makes us need to make things in the first place. That belongs to us. That will always belong to us. As long as we're here, as long as we refuse to give up, as long as we keep choosing evolution over extinction every single day, with every single brushstroke, with every single act of creation. That's how we win. Not by being better than the machines, but by being more human than ever before.